Hi guys, it's me, Chancellor HD, and welcome today to the qualifying watch-along for the 2021 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Hopefully you guys are doing well, whether you joined me earlier on for the Practice 1 watch-along or this is the first time this weekend that you have joined me for some action at this Grand Prix. Hopefully you guys are doing well on what is a very cold Friday night for me in my part of the UK. And yeah, hopefully no matter what part of the world you're from, no matter what time it is, what day it is, hopefully you're having the best day you can possibly be having. And yeah, we have a different, of course, format for this weekend because of the return of the sprint. And we have, I think, a weekend that will probably decide the championship, to be honest. I mean, there is still a chance, of course, that it could go down to the final Grand Prix. But given that Max Verstappen leads by 19 points, and Lewis Hamilton, who we'll get onto in a moment, has a 5-place grid penalty for the Grand Prix this weekend because of a new ICE that he'll have to take on for the Grand Prix. It's looking unlikely that the championship will go down to the final race unless Max Verstappen makes a massive mistake, Red Bull make a big mistake, or something on the reliability side goes wrong for Red Bull. It's looking as though Max Verstappen is going to win his first ever World Championship. There's still plenty of time, though, for Lewis Hamilton to claw his way back and to get his 8th World Championship. But it's looking as though this is going to be a race that if Max Verstappen can win, it puts him in a position of him just waiting, essentially, to win that World Championship. Because if he does win this race, then all he has to do is finish second in the last 3 races, and he'll be the World Champion. So, yeah, I think this is going to be probably the race that really does decide who wins the Drivers' World Championship. Of course, the Constructors' Championship, that is still up for grabs, and that's still a very important championship, of course, in Formula 1. But in regards to what we have been paying attention to really all season, yeah, the Drivers' Championship, it looks as though it is heading in the direction of the man who is, of course, first in that picture and first in the championship, Max Verstappen. Now, we'll just get into, before we get into the teams, the results of Practice 1, which actually don't, in regards to the front of the field, they don't paint a very accurate picture, in my opinion. And we'll get onto those results now. So Lewis Hamilton ended up finishing first, Max Verstappen second, Perez third, Bottas fourth, and then you got Gasly, Sainz, Leclerc, Ocon, Alonso, and Stroll rounding out the top 10. Now with the top 10, firstly, most impressive team, Alpine. 8th and 9th, only at most, a few hundredths of a second slower than the 2 Ferraris. And Alpine did their best time on mediums. Ferrari did their best times on the soft. So Alpine are looking very, very competitive at the moment. Now, with the front of the field, you can see, I think, right there between Hamilton and Verstappen in terms of the number of laps completed, which is the number on the far right hand side, you can really see that yes, Lewis Hamilton, he did improve his car a lot during the session and showed a lot better speed, but Max Verstappen could have absolutely responded and didn't really do as well that much running in the second half of the session. You can see Hamilton did 31 laps, Verstappen doing almost 10 less. And like I said, Verstappen didn't do that much running in the final half of the session compared to what Lewis Hamilton did. So yes, Lewis Hamilton, he's a lot quicker looking than he was in the first half of Practice 1, where he needed a new setup to be put on the car because, according to him, the front end was completely terrible. But I still feel as though Red Bull can go quite a bit quicker than what they showed in Practice 1 or at the end of Practice 1. Also, Ferrari, I think they could probably go quicker as well because their jump in lap time from medium to soft wasn't that big. So I think there might be some lap time left from Ferrari as well. Not an absolutely massive amount, but I do feel as though Ferrari have more to show than what they showed in practice one. Saying that, still, like I said, I think Alpine have looked pretty good so far this weekend. And then for the rest of the order, you have Tsunoda P11, then Vettel, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Norris, Schumacher, Latifi, Russell, Ricciardo, Mazepin. And also, Aston Martin have looked pretty good so far. McLaren, I think, are still a team to look out for. They pushed nowhere near the limit compared to other teams in practice one, and wouldn't be surprised at all if Norris was in the top 6 of the grid going into the sprint, honestly, out of this session, because I think McLaren, like we've seen plenty of times before, on a Friday, don't really bother with it too much, especially when there is actually a practice session. And as for the rest of the field, it is as expected, really, from what I thought and many thought coming into this Grand Prix weekend. Now, before we get to the session, which is going to be starting in about 23 minutes time, let's get on to the teams and talk a bit more in depth in regards to each team and how I think they are going to do. First off, Mercedes, and like I said, Lewis Hamilton, his car was definitely better looking in the second half of the session. The setup change did work, whatever they did. I think there may be something to the suspension, is what they did, to make it just a bit more stable on the front end and a bit more responsive as well for Lewis Hamilton in the middle sector, where in that middle sector, if you don't have a good front end, then you can forget about having a good result, really, around this track. Like I said, car looks better, but Red Bull, I still feel as though have the advantage over Mercedes. I don't think they're losing that much, honestly, in a straight line, especially considering we are at sea level, quite a high, above sea level, and at altitude around this track. So it's not like Red Bull are losing an absolutely massive amount of time compared to Mercedes-Benz. So they're not losing that much time down the straights. I mean, Mercedes are still quicker, don't get me wrong, but that Red Bull are not 2 or 3 tenths of a second down. And then in the middle sector, Red Bull are definitely the quickest team. Just going to quickly just go off mic a moment, just to quickly press something on my skybox. Just hold on a moment. Oh, there you go. The skybox was about to go to standby mode, so I just had to quickly press back up on the box. As I was saying, Mercedes, in the first and third sector, I think when they're absolutely at their maximum, Mercedes are quicker, but I think Red Bull are, most importantly, quick enough in the middle sector to be the quicker team over Mercedes-Benz. So like I said, Red Bull are not losing that much time in the power dominant sector 1 and sector 3 because we are at altitude here in Brazil. Mercedes will be closer to Red Bull this weekend than they were in Mexico. Mexico, I think, is just one of those races where it really suited Red Bull, and Mercedes were just really, despite locking out the front row in qualifying, I don't think they were really set up for the race well at all. And I think, really, if you look at the speed difference, Mercedes in Mexico looked as though they kind of set themselves up more so for qualifying than the race, to try and get the front row and then try and control the front of the race, which could have worked. But of course, with Verstappen getting into the lead on the very first corner in Mexico, that plan goes to shit. Like I said, this Grand Prix, they should be closer, and they do look closer, but I still think Red Bull are the favourites. Lewis Hamilton, like I said, 5-place grid penalty. I think Hamilton will be at least P2, maybe P3 at the absolute worst, but I honestly think we'll get P2. Yes, like I said, even though Red Bull, I think, are quicker, we know Lewis Hamilton can still split the Red Bulls because Perez is quick, but I think Hamilton is that quick over a single lap that he can force his way in there and force himself in between the 2 Red Bulls there. But with that 5-place penalty, I mean, even if he wins the sprint race, he will be starting the race from P6 at best. So Lewis Hamilton not really in a position to fight the Red Bulls really this weekend, unless Red Bull have in the race either not that great a race pace, or we get a safety car at the right time, or something like that, or, rain at the right time for Mercedes and at the wrong time for Red Bull. That's really the only way Lewis Hamilton is going to be able to fight Max Verstappen and Red Bull in general, because of that grid penalty. And also the cars who will be at the very front of the midfield, I don't think are going to be that slow in comparison to, say, Mercedes as they were in Mexico. So I don't think it's going to be as easy for Hamilton to make his way back through the field. And you never know, in the sprint, he could end up having, a slight incident and end up only finishing third and fourth, and then end up starting at the back end of the top 10 rather than halfway in the top 10. So despite Hamilton probably having the pace to still push Verstappen in this session to a certain extent, Red Bull are not really fighting him in, say, this session and the sprint. What they've got to keep their eye on is this man on screen, Valtteri Bottas. He is really, I think, the key player in this Grand Prix weekend for Mercedes, because if Valtteri Bottas can get pole today or win the sprint race tomorrow to start on pole for the race on Sunday, and then hold Max Verstappen up, and we did see as well in Mexico that even though Perez was much quicker at the end of the race compared to Hamilton, the Mercedes straight line speed was so good that Perez couldn't get close enough to really make a move. That could happen on the in the race on Sunday, where Red Bull are quicker in the race, but they don't have the straight line speed compared to Mercedes to get the job done. So Bottas, like I said, he is the key man for Mercedes this weekend. If he can get in there and really interrupt what Red Bull ideally want to do this weekend, which is get Verstappen on pole, win the sprint race, and then dominate the race from pole position in the real race on Sunday. If he can interrupt that, especially with the race on Sunday, then that can allow Lewis Hamilton then to not lose that much time as he would if Verstappen was leading out front with no one ahead of him, of course. And it would allow Lewis Hamilton to possibly not lose as many points to Verstappen as he would if Verstappen didn't have Bottas there. And if, there's a safety car at the right time and Bottas is in some way holding up or impeding Verstappen from getting further up the field or further down the road in terms of time, then that can help Lewis Hamilton. So Valtteri Bottas has got to be on it this weekend. I mean, in Mexico, I know in the race he was pretty poor after Ricciardo took him out. I would like to say, though, we don't know if there was any, damage maybe to his car that could have caused his lack of pace in the race after the contact. I mean, Ricciardo didn't hit him that hard, but you never know what that damage or that contact could have done to the back of Valtteri Bottas's car. I still think he could have done better, though, than what he did, don't get me wrong, but you never know what it could have done. But if Bottas this weekend does what he did in regards to his speed in qualifying, what he did in 2017, for example, then that's exactly what Mercedes need, and it's game on still for Hamilton to get back into the race against Verstappen somehow. But if Bottas is not really on it at all, like we saw kind of in practice earlier, because he wasn't really that quick earlier, was Valtteri Bottas, compared to how he's been in other Grand Prix weekends in practice sessions, then all it's going to be is, and I'll move on to them now, all it's going to be is this team and Max Verstappen getting pole, winning the sprint race, and winning the real race on Sunday. That's what it's going to be. Valtteri Bottas has got to get in there and try and impede and hold up Max Verstappen. I don't think he will, to be honest, because I don't think Mercedes, for one, have enough speed in qualifying trim to get ahead of Red Bull. And I think Bottas as well isn't consistently quick enough at the moment to be relied upon in that sense. So yeah, Max Verstappen and Red Bull going to them now. I think they're going to win this weekend. I think Max Verstappen is going to win the Grand Prix. They look absolutely the best team on the grid, not just in terms of the performance of the car and how Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez are performing, but in terms of their production on track, producing in the big moments in races, and even in certain qualifying sessions in the last few races, Max Verstappen and Red Bull have been pretty good. So I just don't see how anyone can really stop them. Max Verstappen, of course, the last time he raced here, he did dominate the race, got pole position just about from Sebastian Vettel 2 years ago, and then in the race, despite there being about a million safety cars, he still dominated the race, let's be honest, compared to the rest of the field who, just couldn't get near him. Even Lewis Hamilton just could not keep up with him in that Grand Prix, despite that year Mercedes clearly having the quicker car. So I would be very surprised if Max Verstappen is not getting pole position in this session. And then if he does, most likely he gets the sprint race win. By the way, Hamilton's penalty won't apply for the sprint race. So if Hamilton does make contact, for example, with Max Verstappen in the sprint race and it results in both of them finishing way down the order, then sorry, my throat really cut out there, Jesus Christ. Then, that could help Mercedes and Hamilton. But if that doesn't happen, and Valtteri Bottas doesn't produce the speed that we know he can produce, we saw it in Turkey, the performance that he does have when he's on it, if he can't do that, Bottas, then Max Verstappen is winning this weekend. He absolutely is. Whether you're a fan of him or not, you have to say right now he is the best performing driver in Formula One, and he, in terms of confidence, is absolutely sky high. Also, Sergio Perez, I'd say his confidence is pretty high at the moment as well. 3 podiums in a row he has had for Red Bull, and last weekend probably should have finished in second place. The weekend before, he was close enough at times to be looking as though he'd be on pole position for the US Grand Prix. Been very good, has Sergio Perez. As talking to Perez, they're working on his car. Don't know if there's a problem for Perez's car. I'll have a look in a moment. But yeah, both drivers, confidence sky high. Red Bull car looking the best it's looked all year. It's going to take something pretty mental to stop them this weekend. Right. Let's now get on to the rest of the teams. And we'll quickly go through the rest of the teams because we only have, 10 minutes to go or something until qualifying gets underway. McLaren, like I said, didn't really show what they, legitimately have for this weekend. They always do tend to, on a Friday in practice sessions, not really push that hard at all. And then when it comes to the real sessions, they have to show their real pace. They tend to be not just a lot quicker, but surprisingly good. Getting even into the top 5 sometimes in qualifying sessions. So, yeah, I think McLaren are definitely going to be in the top 10, probably with both cars. It will be close with Aston Martin and Alpine, but I do think McLaren are still a force to be reckoned with in their midfield. Compared to Ferrari, though, I'm not quite sure where they sit. It's kind of 50-50, I'd say, at the moment. It's really hard to say, to be honest, because, like I said, McLaren have not really done their proper, quali sim running. They didn't really do that in practice 1. They didn't even, I think, touch the soft compound tyre, even in practice 1. They only went onto the medium compound. So, yeah, not really able right now to say, can they beat Ferrari, their main rivals in the Constructors' Championship, which of course you'll see on the bottom of the screen in a middle, in a minute, not in the middle, that they are now in 4th place, sadly, because Ferrari had that great weekend in Mexico where Ferrari finished 5th and 6th. and scored 18 points, and McLaren only scored 1 point, I think, with Lando Norris, which was a poor return. I mean, I know the Grand Prix, they weren't that great pace-wise, but they should have been scoring at least, 6 or 7 points at the very least to still make sure they were close enough. But as you can see now, as it's starting to scroll across, Ferrari are leading by 13.5 points, which is, they can still overturn that, McLaren, but I think last weekend was a big weekend for Ferrari, who we'll get on to now. Ferrari looking good so far, but I'm curious to see when they're really pushing at their absolute lowest fuel, highest engine modes possible. I'm very curious to see how quick they are compared to not, Gasly and the McLarens or the Alpines, but in regards to Red Bull and Mercedes, because if you had seen practice 1, you would have seen that Charles Leclerc on the medium compound tyre was, I think, 5,000ths of a second behind Max Verstappen when, their best run at the time was on the medium compound tyre. And Carlos Sainz also was pretty quick. But then, from medium to soft, they didn't gain that much time. They gained time, but not enough compared to what it should have been, and compared to what Mercedes and Red Bull did in the jump from medium to soft in the lap time gain. So I'm curious to see whether Ferrari, maybe they're just not going that well on the soft compound tyre, or whether what I'm hoping is that they were running a bit more fuel and maybe a bit less power in or on those particular runs on the soft compound tyre. Because I think if let's say they were running a bit more fuel and were maybe not pushing as hard as they could, Ferrari might not be that far away. I still don't think they'll be anywhere near pole position, but if one of the top 4 are not quite on it, and maybe Mercedes, let's say, are lacking, a bit of speed compared to Red Bull, if Ferrari do have quite a bit more speed to show, then they might be able to cause a surprise. And we've heard talk as well in the last few weeks that Ferrari have a new power unit that is now at the level of a Honda and a Mercedes and can compete with those respective teams and respective manufacturers. This Grand Prix should be a good race to really see the evidence of that, because despite being at altitude and the effect that has on the power units, you still do get to see, especially in the sector time and the speed trap data, you do get to see what power units are performing at at what level. So be curious to see as well how they get on in regards to that. But Ferrari definitely top 10 with both cars. I mean, they're not really in that position anymore like they were maybe earlier in the season, where around tracks like this, they were maybe struggling with both cars to get strongly in the top 10 and get good grid positions. They're not really in that position anymore. They're looking very, very good at the moment, I have to say, and have done since, really, you'd have to say, since the new power unit. So we'll see what evidence there is of that in this session. Now, quickly, I'll get on to the final few teams. Aston Martin, looking decent. I don't think they'll get both cars in the top 10. I think they'll struggle still, to be honest, with McLaren improving for sure from what they did in practice. I think they'll still struggle, Aston Martin, to get any cars in the top 10. But they're looking a bit better than they were in Mexico in terms of, the comparison between what they did in qualifying in Mexico to what they're doing so far here. They're looking better as a team, but ultimately, I just don't think they have quite enough in the middle sector, especially, to be really competing with McLaren, Ferrari, and AlphaTauri. Talking about AlphaTauri, with Gasly, they should be in the top 7, top 8 on the grid at the absolute least. And with Yuki Tsunoda, he will be somewhere in there. Not quite sure he'll be in the top 10. Depends a lot on the next team we'll get onto, Alpine. But AlphaTauri are looking decent, and with Gasly looking as usually good as they usually are. Alpine were the surprise team in practice one. Like I said, 8th and 9th, and they did their best times on mediums when everyone else in the top 10 did their best time on the soft. So Alpine are looking pretty good, and if they can carry that speed through for the rest of the weekend, then that would be, I think, pretty big for them, because at the moment they are level on points with AlphaTauri and the constructors. For P5, I think on 106 points, they're level with AlphaTauri, and if they could have a big weekend here, then maybe it will be enough in the end for P5 and the constructors. I still think AlphaTauri will get it, because I think AlphaTauri are a stronger team and have more pace ultimately than what Alpine have on a more consistent basis. But we've seen this season that Alpine, despite not being that quick a lot of the time, still end up somehow grabbing points. I mean, Mexico is a great example of that. Alonso was really slow in qualifying, and then in the race was actually not that bad and could have arguably, gone after P8 or P7. His pace was, at that level. So, yeah, Alonso and Alpine, I think, in regards to this session coming up, they'll be in there somewhere. It's just very hard to say where, because they didn't do a run on the soft compound tyre. But I think definitely one of their cars will be in the top 10. If they can get both in, that would be a massive result for them. Alfa Romeo, looking decent, but nothing special. Williams looking better than Mexico, but like I said, nothing special. And of course, at the very, very back, it will be Haas F1, who are an absolute shit show. Now, with 2.5 minutes to go, let me just get these pictures on screen. By the way, like early with the practice stream, I can't show any pictures from the Sao Paulo Grand Prix so far, because still, again, we don't have the latest pictures from the Grand Prix, enough pictures to put in a slideshow for you guys from the Grand Prix weekend so far. So I'll have to show pictures from last weekend's Grand Prix, but still, of course, the cars of this year on screen. So sorry about that, but of course on Sunday I'll have pictures from the weekend so far to show in the streams on Sunday. But yeah, that's the way it's going to be, unfortunately. But guys, quickly in the live chat, with a couple minutes to go until qualifying begins here in Sao Paulo. Quite cold, by the way. 15 degrees Celsius is the air temperature in Sao Paulo. 25 degrees is the track temperature. So not that warm, to be honest. Yeah, let me know in the live chat, who do you think is getting pole position for the sprint race? Let me know right now in the chat, and also give me your top 5 for the grid for the sprint race. So I'm going to go for Verstappen on pole, Hamilton 2nd, Perez 3rd, Bottas 4th, and 5th. I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc, but it'll be very close, I think, between him, Sainz, Gasly, Norris, and Ricciardo as well. And as also, like I said before, the short lap, it does make things very, very close here in Sao Paulo. So I think we are in for a very close session. But yeah, let me know in the chat right now, and I'll make sure to read out a couple before we get properly into the session itself. Dexter Hall says, hey Chaz, what did I miss? Well, nothing so far, and you actually joined at a great time, because we are about to start qualifying for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And I'll just quickly get the graphics ready for you guys, and also I'll get up the dotted line to show the cutoff points in this session. So on the left-hand side, that's the running order from practice 1 earlier. That's not the live qualifying order. And then let me just get the graphics ready quickly. So we're about 30 seconds away from the light going green at the end of the pit lane. And there you go, Q1. And if you are new, Formula 1, of course, there are plenty of new people joining the fan base all the time. Qualifying is divided into 3 parts. Q1, we knock out the 5 slowest, and it's an 18-minute session. Q2, the next 5 slowest get eliminated in a 15-minute session, and Q3 is a top 10 shootout for the final 10 positions, as the 2 Ferraris come out on the soft compound tyre straight away. And we'll see when the light goes green. Has the light already gone green? Yes, it has, but they just haven't shown it on the screen. So I'll have to sync up my timer in a few moments' time. Not quite yet. But the session, guys, has started. And we should have a very close session, really, throughout the field, except for, of course, Haas F1. But let me just get that up and put it there. No, not there. There you go. And there you go. So, yeah, if you are new, anyone below that dotted line at the end of Q1 will be out of the session, and they will start the sprint race from those positions, as we have a couple Ferraris, I think an Aston Martin, an Alpine, and a Haas, and a couple other cars I can't quite see on the circuit right now. And once they show finally the timer on the screen, I will get the timer up on screen and synced up. Just want to read out quickly a couple predictions. So Max Verstappen will get pole according to Victor Bangle. Vinster says Red Bull 1-2. Brabham says Lewis, Max, Bottas, Perez, Gasly. Dexter Hall says Lewis, Verstappen, Bottas, Perez, Sainz. I still, with Verstappen and Hamilton in regards to those two, I still think that it's Verstappen's really to lose. I think Verstappen still has the edge, and I think Mercedes and Hamilton still know that. As Charles Leclerc begins his first timed lap of qualifying, the timer I'll sync up in about 5 seconds. And 3, 2, 1. And there you go. So 16 minutes to go here in Q1. As Charles Leclerc has already on this lap been slower than Carlos Sainz through the first sector. The first sector, though, not really that important. It's the middle sector that really gets your grid position. I mean, it is great if you can get a slipstream through either Sector 1 or Sector 3, but Sector 2 is where the money is made, as Charles Leclerc now exits turn 10 into turn 11, which is a flat-out left-hander, into Jinsal, which is a medium-speed left-hander. And he now begins the climb and the run to the start-finish line. Carlos Sainz, though, on this lap so far has been quicker than Charles Leclerc, and Leclerc does go up into P1 with the first time on the board. Saying that now, Carlos Sainz goes quicker by 0.3 of a second. Good beginning of the session for Carlos Sainz there, as Nikita Mazepin goes into P3. Pierre Gasly goes P1 by 0.4 of a second. That's a very, very quick time there for Gasly. A 1:10.0 right out the blocks. That was actually quicker, I think, than his best practice 1 time straight away. That is like I said, that's a very good time to be setting straight away. As I'll just update quickly the Haas's and get them out of the way. The Mazepin was 5th. It is now Nicholas Latifi who is in P5. So let me just quickly update that. So there you go. Nicholas Latifi P5. And the top 6 are the only the only drivers, teams, whatever you want to call it, to set a time so far. As Blade, he also gives a prediction for Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, Sainz, Gasly, and Norris. That's his prediction here in here for qualifying here in Brazil, as Max Verstappen starts his first timed run of qualifying, and he now comes up to the first sector time beam, and of course he'll be massively up, and yeah, already 1/4 of a second quicker than Pierre Gasly, who is in the pits. after his first timed run, a very good first timed run. And Max Verstappen now into the middle sector. And turn 8, very important to get the nose in on that corner. And also into turn 9. And rear end complains always slightly on the exit of that corner, but he got away with it pretty nicely. Did. Verstappen will be, yep, he is up on the quickest man so far, which is now Lando Norris, who has gone quickest on a 1:9.5. And like I said, with Norris and McLaren, yeah, they were always going to be a lot quicker in this session. Already half a second quicker than Stroll, Gasly, Vettel in the Ferraris as well. As Max Verstappen goes P1 by 0.2 of a second. And Sergio Perez goes third behind the McLaren of Lando Norris. So yeah, Norris, like I said, was going to look and be quick in this session, and he already has. So let me just update that. So Norris is up to P2, and Perez is up into third place, and then Lance Stroll, pretty sure at the moment, is in P4. No, it is not. It's actually Daniel Ricciardo. The McLaren, both McLarens within half a second of Red Bull straight away. As Hamilton there, getting very close with Lando Norris on his outlap. So there you go. Ricciardo fourth, and then Stroll, Gasly, and then Vettel is in 7th place. There you go. Vettel in 7th. And then Kimi Räikkönen is 8th. As Lewis Hamilton now begins his first timed run of qualifying. Russell, surprisingly, has gone P9 in the Williams. And like I said, that is quite surprising. I forgot to put Vettel up there. So there you go. Gasly 6th, Vettel 7th. There's Hamilton. There's a purple first sector. We do, though, like I've said before, we expect Mercedes to be very quick in that sector. And then you got, Raikkonen 8th, Russell 9th, Sainz is in 10th. And then you've got Antonio Giovinazzi in P11, Charles Leclerc P12, and then Schumacher 13th, Latifi 14th, Mazepin 15th, and the rest have not yet set a lap time. And Hamilton now comes through, and what a middle sector that was. 0.4 of a second quicker than Verstappen on this lap so far. This is a brilliant opening run from Hamilton, and he now comes to the line and goes P1 by half a second. That is a statement right there. Verstappen's on another lap, but he's not going anywhere near as quick as Hamilton, as Bottas now comes to the line and goes third. And he is, Bottas, half a tenth slower than Verstappen, half a second down on Hamilton's. Verstappen completes his lap and does not improve. But yeah, that is a very good lap. And like I said, with Hamilton, with him having the penalty, as that's a big moment on the exit at turn 13. But Nikita Mazepin, we know the Haas rear end is just an absolute horror show and a death trap, really, that Haas car is. And as soon as he put the throttle down, the rear end was screaming for him to stop, and he did very well to control it, because I think earlier in the season he probably would have spun like he normally does do, actually. But I think the most interesting thing in regards to Mercedes is not that Lewis Hamilton was so quick there, it's that Mercedes look very quick so far. Like I said, Mercedes need Valtteri Bottas to get in there and play havoc, or wreak havoc rather, against Red Bull to help Lewis Hamilton in the race on Sunday come through and either beat Verstappen or not lose that many points to Verstappen. as Esteban Ocon now comes to the line to set his first time of the session, and it is P7. Good lap time for Esteban Ocon as Gasly is on another lap. He is currently in P9 because Ocon is up to 7th, now down to P10. And Gasly goes all the way up to P3. What an improvement there for Pierre. So Pierre Gasly is up to 3rd place. Barely slower than Max Verstappen. And Yuki Tsunoda now up to 4th in the other AlphaTauris. AlphaTauri looking as though, as Leclerc now goes 2nd, the track really improving a lot as Alonso now shoots up into P7. Sainz now goes up to 2nd. Yeah, the track is really improving in this session. Track really starting to rubber in the drivers compared to practice 1. So Sainz is now 2nd. And then you've got Charles Leclerc in 3rd position. And note, Leclerc's had his time deleted, so that great timing. As soon as I put him up the order, he then falls all the way back down. But so the top 3 is Hamilton, Sainz, Verstappen, and then Gasly is 4th, Tsunoda is 5th, and then you've got Bottas in 6th place. Fernando Alonso has gone 7th with his run so far. And then it is Norris 8th. Perez has just improved his time, but has stayed in 9th place, surprisingly. So Perez is 9th. And then Ricciardo 10th. Kimi Raikkonen goes 11th in the other, in the Alfa Romeo. I was going to say the other Ferrari then. Ocon is in P12. And then you've got Stroll 13th. Vettel 14th. Latifi is in 15th, and at the moment, not just in 15th, but 0.2 of a second quicker than Russell, who we know is so good over a single lap. And I think it's Giovinazzi 17th, and then Leclerc, Schumacher, and Mazepin. And here's a replay of Leclerc at turn 4. And let's see it. And yeah, technically he did go over the white line. Not by that much on the exit of turn 4, but it is enough to be a lap time deletion. As Hamilton is back out on circuit, setting another blistering lap. Purple first sector with 5.5 minutes to go in Q1, and 0.6 of a second slower through the middle sector. So he's pretty much doing the same lap time so far as Ocon goes up to P11. Yeah, he's doing the same lap time as he did before. And actually, when he comes to the line, decides to go that bit quicker by just under 0.1 of a second. Lewis Hamilton is now 0.3 of a second quicker than the next car, which is Carlos Sainz, and he is 0.6 quicker than Max Verstappen as Valtteri Bottas now goes 3rd in the second Mercedes, and most importantly for the time being puts himself up there and ahead of Verstappen. Of course, it's not Q3 yet, but that's what Bottas needs to do later, and of course tomorrow in the sprint. And it's actually not Giovinazzi in 17th. I got that wrong. It's actually Mick Schumacher 17th, and then Giovinazzi 18th, Mazepin 19th, and Charles Leclerc is dead last. So he better hope there's no red flags or yellow flags, because if there is at the wrong time, he'll be starting the sprint from the absolute back of the grid. And given it's only 24 laps, he won't make his way through that quickly through the field. So he won't want to be starting in such a poor position. That's why he's already on an outlap, because he wants to avoid that happening. But with just under 4 minutes to go, the people at risk, I would say at the moment, are Latifi, Vettel, Stroll, Raikkonen, Ocon, and maybe Ricciardo as well. I think everyone ahead of him, say from Perez up, looks as though to me should be just about okay, but they will need to go out again just to make sure. As Lando Norris currently sat in P8, and he's on another timed run, and he's improved his first sector despite it being 0.2 of a second down on Lewis Hamilton. And now he's into turns 7 and 8. And the McLaren through this part of the track is probably where they're losing the time, really, compared to the very front of the field. But he's still looking pretty good, I have to say, through that part of the track, as he was let through there by Charles Leclerc, who is still on his outlap. Norris now half a second down on this lap so far compared to Lewis Hamilton, and will probably go 4th or 5th with this time, given how good the McLaren is in the final sector. And Norris comes to the line and goes P7. That's surprising. The lack of speed that he had in the final sector. Thought he would have been quick enough to get ahead of Verstappen, maybe, or at least ahead of Gasly, but no, only P7. As Charles Leclerc now, in 20th place, begins what should be his final lap of Q1. As it is not just him, but Russell, Schumacher, Giovinazzi and Mazepin, who are desperately needing to get into the next part of the session. As Leclerc just goes past a slow Williams there, letting him through as that Williams is on its outlap. The top 6, by the way, have not come out onto the track, and I think they will probably get through. Well, saying that now, Lewis Hamilton comes out on another set of tyres, interestingly, as Charles Leclerc is only 3/10 down so far on this lap compared to Lewis Hamilton, so Leclerc's probably going to go 3rd with this time. Ferrari looking very, very quick, you have to say, so far. And I said, as he pulls to the inside for the shortest run to the line, and he does indeed go 3rd. And like I said, coming into this session, Ferrari, I think, had a lot more pace to show and were holding back a bit in practice, and I think you've seen the evidence of that so far. So Leclerc up to 3rd, Sainz is 2nd, and Ferrari so far looking pretty good. And now we look to the usual suspects to see whether they can make it out of the drop zone. The usual suspects being the 2 Williamses, an Alfa Romeo, and the 2 Haases. As Russell has not improved his first sector, he'll be wanting at least to get ahead of Latifi here, because to be out-qualified by Latifi, who's, I actually think, a pretty decent driver. That would be disappointing for Russell, considering that he's really hammered Latifi in qualifying trim since they began as teammates, and he is just about, by just under a 1/10 of a second, up on Vettel, who is the driver at risk in P15 as the session is about to come to a close. And Russell, now, with a bit of a slipstream ahead, comes to the line and goes P14 in Williams. So Russell is up to 14th. Sebastian Vettel, though, jumps up to 9th place, as Latifi now goes 15th and out-qualifies teammate Russell. Schumacher is 18th. Can Lance Stroll in 17th place get his way into the next part of qualifying? He now opens the DRS, comes to the start-finish line, and what is it? It is 13th place. So both Williamses are knocked out of Q1 as Giovinazzi shoots all the way up to P6. I forgot about him. Giovinazzi all the way up to 6th place in the Alfa Romeo, and that means as Kimi Räikkönen also improves, Räikkönen up to 13th. Esteban Ocon, is he out? No, he is not. He has just improved his time to P12. So Esteban Ocon is in to the next part of qualifying. Daniel Ricciardo as well. He improves his lap time to P11. Valtteri Bottas now goes 2nd in the Mercedes. And Sergio Perez has jumped up to P5. And yeah, let me just update that Esteban Ocon is definitely, and he's definitely through there to the next part of qualifying. Great job by Antonio Giovinazzi to get so high up in the order when he needed to. We know he's so good over a single lap, but what a brilliant lap that was. So, knocked out of Q1, guys, Lance Stroll, Nicholas Latifi, George Russell, Mick Schumacher, and Nikita Mazepin. And Q2 will be getting underway in 2 or 3 minutes' time. So we will wait for that, and I'll get the other dotted line ready so that you guys can see where the cutoff point is for the drivers in Q2. And I've got to say, given what we saw there in Q1, it's going to be very interesting to see who falls by the wayside in this session, because there was some surprising pace in there in that session. Giovinazzi especially, very surprising. Also, quite surprised that Alpine in the end in that session weren't actually that quick. So, yeah, going to be an interesting session, and I think there's some big names, without a doubt, who are going to be eliminated in Q2 here. I mean, you can see at the moment, if it was to finish Q2 with the current 11th to 15th, you'd have Ricciardo, Alonso, Vettel, and Raikkonen. I mean, there's what? How many world championships between them? 7 world championships between that 5. And then you got Ocon, a race winner. Ricciardo has won plenty of races. So, yeah, that would be a really headline, say, next 5 to be eliminated. And I'll just quickly read the chat whilst we're waiting. Yak says, glad to have you back, Chaz. I hope you are feeling better. I am feeling better. I will say, though, getting back to doing this, I mean, it's great and I am enjoying it, but God, it is tiring. I kind of forgot how tiring it is doing this and the amount of energy you have to put into doing it. Brabham Oz, I wouldn't even bother putting House on the board. To be honest, I agree with that, but we have to because, you never know what could happen. A Haas could magically not be 19th and 20th. And it has happened a couple of times this season, so we do have to sadly pay attention to a team that hasn't paid attention at all to 2021. And I'll probably say this when we get to the season review part of the season, but if Haas F1 don't fix up next season, then I hope they just leave the grid, because they're just a waste of space, to be honest. The car's terrible. Mick Schumacher's the only redeeming factor in that team. And really, other than 2018, that was massively benefited from basically having a 2017 Ferrari with a 2018 Ferrari power unit. Other than that, they've been mediocre, really. And they don't even build their own car. So, yeah, Haas F1, please fix up, because at the minute, you're a waste of a grid spot. Let me look at some other comments here, if I can. Blah blah. If I can speak. Unobjective personality says, "Can you stop rambling?" No, I'll ramble for as long as I want to. And as well, my rambling was actually, me trying to get into the state of play between Red Bull and Mercedes. It wasn't really rambling. And, yeah, not much as well to say about the midfield teams, really, so far. So that's why I didn't spend too much time talking about the midfield, because, I mean, a couple of the midfield teams didn't really show what they're capable of in practice one, so there wasn't really anything to say. And, of course, the fight at the front is what we are focused on. Someone's saying in chat, I can't pronounce your first name there, but Dewo or Dewar says, I wouldn't be surprised if Haas was sold. Maybe Andretti can come in that way. I don't see that happening. I think the reason I don't see that happening is because Gene Haas, he's not going to sell to a person he's been competing against in America for so long. He's not going to do that. I mean, the Andretti name and organization, family, whatever you want to call it, is infinitely more successful, of course, than Haas or Haas, whatever you want to call them. But he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that at all. I think he's most likely to sell. If he's going to sell it to anyone, he'll sell it to someone, someone European, most likely, who he thinks knows what they're doing. I don't think he's going to, just sell it to anyone, and I definitely don't think he will sell it to someone he's been in competition with. It would be good, though, to see Andretti in F1, because it'd be interesting to see, compared to Haas, whether they would be much better and whether, American-run teams can actually succeed in Formula One nowadays, or whether they just aren't at the level of what Formula One teams are at, compared to what they're doing in IndyCar and NASCAR and all of that. But we're not going to get that answer because, it was rumoured that they were going to buy Alfa Romeo, but the deal didn't happen. So that's a shame, but that's the way it is. So session, by the way, has started, but no cars on track right now. I'll sync up the timer in 3, 2, 1. There you go. So 14 minutes to go in this session. Vinster saying, looking for a top 10 finish from Yuki this weekend. I know it's a lot to ask. I think qualifying, he could probably do it, but the race, yeah, that's going to be a tough ask, especially with the competition we have this weekend and in general in 2021. Bravamor says it would be good if Andretti and Haas joined forces in an F1 team. Not that it would happen. Yeah, in a fantasy world, that'd be great, but like you said, it's not going to happen. And I think because of how short the lap is, I think the reason we are seeing cars not on track right now is because, as we see, the infamous Inaki Rueda, the man responsible, of course, for so many great things at Ferrari. I think like I said, because how short the lap is, and how many, how quickly it is to do a lap, like I was saying. What do you call it? What am I trying to say? They don't want to do too many laps because they don't have, that many tyre sets available. And I think most likely the front 4 or 5 will probably try to go for a harder compound. Because I think that rule still applies, doesn't it? Or do they only have the soft tyre available? I can't remember, to be honest. I haven't done one of these streams, where we have the sprint a part of the weekend as well. I can't remember, to be honest, but if anyone is planning on running on the medium, you don't want to be doing too many laps, so you won't want to be doing 3 or 4 laps, which you can do easily around here because how short the lap is. But it looks as though Mercedes have they have soft tyres on that Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, and it should be soft tyres probably then for all. And there you go. Team Mercedes now come out of the pits. And we'll see if Mercedes can keep up their speed. Very quick in the first and third sector, like we've said. But even in Sector 2, in Q1, they were quite a bit quicker than Red Bull. 0.2 quicker, which is quite a surprise. As the clouds darken, that might just be because it's getting later in the day, but you never know at Interlagos with the weather. It can rain literally at any moment. As the 2 Mercs now join the action, and now we have plenty of cars coming out as well. 2 Red Bulls, 2 AlphaTauris, 2 McLarens, Ocon and Vettel in the Alpine, and Aston Martin respectively. And yeah, be interesting to see if that speed could be maintained. Because in Q1, because it's Q1 and, Red Bull are never, unless they don't get the laps right or the, weather's playing a factor or whatever, Red Bull are never really at threat from getting knocked out in Q1. So you could argue that they may have been sandbagging just a bit in that session. We'll see, but I think Mercedes definitely so far, and since that new setup for Hamilton was put on the car halfway through practice one, they definitely, to me, look a bit quicker than they were looking initially. And Lewis Hamilton, talking of him, now begins his first flying lap in Q2. Hamilton into turn 1 and turn 2, looking pretty good. Nothing wrong with that Mercedes so far on this lap. And now opens the DRS as Bottas and Ocon have also started their first flying runs. Now Gasly starts his. And obviously, purple first sector for Hamilton. And now into the middle sector as Max Verstappen now starts his first run here in Q2. And Hamilton still for the moment has the purple first sector. And he will come across maybe a slow Alpine of Fernando Alonso, who is on his outlap. And the Alpine does pull out of the way at the last moment. So does a Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. That's good for Hamilton, as Hamilton has done 2 purple sectors. We'll see what Bottas does in comparison. Bottas actually does a purple middle sector, so good there for Valtteri, as Hamilton does go P1 on a 108.6. Valtteri Bottas, let's see what he can do as he now comes to the start-finish line. And Bottas is actually quickest because Hamilton has had his time deleted. As Ocon, I was going to say Ocon goes quickest. Gasly now goes quickest in the AlphaTauri. Look at that. As Max Verstappen now comes to the line and goes 3/10 quicker than Gasly. And Max Verstappen is now P1 in the Red Bull. Where did that time from Gasly come from? I mean, he was quick in Q1, but I didn't think he'd be that quick in Q2, to be honest. And Hamilton, and we're going to see a replay of it now, exit of turn 4. It's only slight, but it's enough over the white line to be a clear violation of track limits. So he will have to go again, will Lewis Hamilton. But it is Verstappen, Gasly, Bottas, and then you've got Leclerc now actually up in 3rd place for Ferrari. So Leclerc is up to 3rd, Bottas 4th, Carlos Sainz is now in P5, and then Ricciardo is in 6th place, and I've just accidentally put Sainz up to 4th. He's actually 5th. Yeah, Ricciardo is now 6th. Perez is 7th, and then Alonso is 8th, with Norris in P9, and Ocon is in P10. And then the rest is Tsunoda in the drop zone, P11. Vettel is in the drop zone in P12. So is, of course, Raikkonen and Giovinazzi 13th and 14th. And Hamilton 15th. Hasn't set a time yet because his first time was deleted, like I said, for a track limit violation. As Hamilton does not improve his first sector, but it is still pretty good, and he stays well within track limits this time around. He shouldn't really be going that much quicker on this run compared to his first run because, of course, it is now a 2 or 3 lap worn set of soft compound tyres. So, shouldn't be any quicker than his original lap time of a 108.6, really, as he comes to the middle sector time beam now, and he's done a purple middle sector. But how will he do in this final sector compared to Max Verstappen as he now comes through turn 14, the kink, and Hamilton comes to the line and does go P1 by almost 0.2 of a second. So Lewis Hamilton is back where he was at the end of Q1. And of course, at the end of practice 1, as well as Bottas goes up to 3rd in the Mercedes. So I'll update that in a moment. So Hamilton, P1, Verstappen, P2, and Bottas, P3, and Bottas Only just over a tenth of a second, maybe a tenth and a half at most, behind Max Verstappen. And Hamilton losing the rear end slightly on the exit of Sao, which is the left-hand medium speed corner of turn 13. And now all of the cars, and even though the Team Mercedes are on track right now, all of the cars will now head back to the pits and will be in the pits, refueling and getting on a fresh set of tyres. So with 4.5 minutes to go pretty much, we have Ocon, Tsunoda, Vettel, Raikkonen and Giovinazzi in the drop zone. Ocon, a tad surprised about that, given his pace so far this weekend. Also, Tsunoda, I think there's more there from Tsunoda to be shown. I mean, he's, almost 0.6 of a second slower than Gasly at the moment. And he's not been that slow this weekend. And also Sergio Perez in P8. Only 0.1 of a second in at the moment, getting into the top 10. That is a bit of a surprise. And I'd say, really, from Gasly down to Norris, they're all at risk of getting knocked out. So they'll all be back out on track. And I expect as well, Hamilton, Verstappen and Bottas as well to come out on the circuit. As Carlos Sainz just sat in the pits. He's been, I'd say, probably quicker so far this weekend by the looks of it compared to Charles Leclerc. And there is a shot of Kimi Raikkonen, his last Grand Prix Interlagos. Of course, great history here. He won the race in 2007, and of course, in that race, won the World Championship. He's also been on the podium here plenty of times. 2003, where he was going to win that race, so if it wasn't for a red flag at the wrong time that allowed Fisichella in the Jordan to win that Grand Prix. 2004, very close to winning. 2005, close to winning. 2006, I think he was on the front row. 07, he won the race and the championship. 08, podium. And even in the last few years, he's had success here as well with a podium in 2017 and 2018 for Ferrari. And even on the last visit to this Grand Prix in the Alfa Romeo that wasn't that quick, he almost got a podium. I'm expecting a bit more from Kimi Raikkonen, put it that way, in this final lap and in this race in general, because like I've said, he has got a good record around this circuit. And we're currently looking at Esteban Ocon, I believe, on this outlap, as everyone is now on track on an outlap with 2 minutes to go in Q2. And there's some big names that could possibly fall by the wayside here. Like I said, from Gasly down to Norris, they're all at risk. And if any of them fall out of the top 10, they'll be massively disappointed. This man on screen, though, Fernando Alonso, maybe you could argue due to the pace of the Alpine, the most at risk from being eliminated, as Alonso begins his final attempt in Q2. Of course, Alonso, great memories of this circuit. He won both his World Championships at this Grand Prix. His first sector, not an improvement on what he's done so far, but middle sector, I'm sure he should improve. As Alonso brakes hard for turn 8, gets the front end in nicely. Alonso, of course, has a peculiar driving style that actually I quite like, and actually do use that driving style quite a lot on the F1 game myself, which is throwing the car at the apex and not really having any front end grip in terms of front downforce levels, as Alonso probably wishes he had a bit more grip through that middle sector because he has not improved his time so far. And he comes to the line improved his final sector, but he has not improved his lap time overall. So Alonso sits in 9th place, hoping that everybody below him does not improve. As Yuki Tsunoda now comes to the line. Can he get out of 12th place and into the top 10? Comes to the line. And nope, he will start the race from the sprint race from at least P12. Ocon goes up to 10th. So both Alpines for the moment in the top 10. And now we look at Sebastian Vettel as Charles Leclerc goes up to 4th place in the Ferrari. Only a 10th of a second away from Bottas there. Vettel, only P12. We'll be disappointed. Will be Vettel with that time, as Norris, 4 thousandths of a second up on Ocon through the lap so far. And there's only 3 thousandths of a second at the moment separating the two. As Perez goes up to 6th. Ricciardo is 8th. Norris goes into the top 10 and into P7. So Lando Norris is going into the top 10. As Hamilton improves his time further to a 108.0, now 4 tenths quicker than Verstappen, and Bottas now goes second. Mercedes 1-2 so far, just like it was at the end of Q1, and Raikkonen ends up 14th. Let's be honest, the Alfa Romeo was never going to be any quicker than that. And we'll see what Giovinazzi can do, but I don't think it'll be an improvement, really. And Note comes into the pits. So, that is Q2, guys, over and done with, and here is your finishing order. So, getting into the top 10, Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, Sergio Perez, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, and Fernando Alonso. So, knocked down Q2, Esteban Ocon, Sebastian Vettel, Yuki Tsunoda, Kimi Raikkonen, and Antonio Giovinazzi. Q3 will begin in a couple minutes' time. And I'll get stuff ready. I was just going to say, actually, a couple things. One, guys, let me know right now in the live chat, who do you think is getting pole? Do you think Hamilton will continue this going into the rest of the session, going into Q3? Do you think he will end up P1 at the end of this session, even though it won't really matter too much in regards to the race on Sunday? Let me know what you think, and also let me know if you think Bottas can finish in second, or what you think is going to happen in positions 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Let me know right now in the live chat, and if I can, I will read out some predictions from you guys. Just want to say though, don't forget, if you are new to the channel, to subscribe for more content like this, because even though I won't be live tomorrow at all for the sprint race, because you guys know my opinion on the sprint race, I will be live on Sunday 3 times for the 2021 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Firstly, 2 p.m. UK time on Sunday, I'll be live for the race preview. Then I'll be live at 4:30 p.m. UK time for the race watch along for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And then, if there is anything hopefully to react to this time, I'll be doing a race reaction stream right after the conclusion of the Grand Prix. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for that content coming up later this weekend. And also, don't forget to share this video, share the channel as well. Definitely helps the channel grow. And as well, smash the like button. Right, let's quickly have a read of the chat. So Rowan says it'll be Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. DeWoe says Bottas. Lemaine Wade says Hammer time. Vinster says Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. Brother Moll says Hamilton and Bottas. Got to say, Hamilton and Bottas looking very, very quick in this session. And Red Bull just don't really seem to have an answer. And I will say, this session so far reminds me a lot, actually, of the... And this weekend I'm going to reference also had the sprint race on the Saturday. Reminds me a lot of the Italian Grand Prix, where we thought Red Bull would be very quick going into qualifying. We thought they would be, even if they weren't on pole, they would be, you know, very close. But Mercedes in that session absolutely dominated and obliterated everyone. So far, that appears to be the case here. So yeah, Red Bull really if this pace is what the pace actually is, they need to do a bit of a damage limitation going into the sprint race, because they can't afford to be, having Sergio Perez in P6. They need him to be a bit more in play in regards to the Mercedes for the Grand Prix later this weekend. So, yeah, that's not good for Red Bull. And like I said, Hamilton will have the grid penalty. So for Max Verstappen, his aim has got to be to beat Valtteri Bottas. That's got to be his aim. If he finishes second to Hamilton, then, like I said, with Hamilton with the penalty, doesn't really matter. So Bottas versus Verstappen is really the fight we're looking for here. And if Bottas can get second, or even first, then that would be a massive, massive result for Mercedes. And I'd actually say, going into this final Q3, ideally what Mercedes would need is Bottas to get pole here from Hamilton second, and then tomorrow in the sprint race for Bottas to win it from Hamilton second, so that Hamilton can protect Bottas from anyone behind. And then Bottas, of course, can then start the race on Sunday on pole position. That's what Mercedes, in an ideal situation, I think, need here. But given the pace we've seen so far, looks as though, Hamilton is definitely the quicker of the two Mercedes. And of course, Hamilton's starting position, in regards to his 5-place grid penalty, his starting position depends on his result from his result from the sprint race. This qualifying session matters in terms of determining the starting grid, but it does not matter in terms of, where will Lewis Hamilton start the race from on Sunday. And Nikita Mazepin, they're just showing an interview of him. They showed some team radio there. I don't quite know why. Maybe something's been said. And Mazepin looks like he's crying, actually. I don't know what about. Unless he has a cold. If anyone can tell me why. Yeah, he is. He's crying. I don't know why he's crying. Yeah, it'd be good if someone could tell me why, because that's not nice to see, obviously, and I would like to know why he's upset. Maybe it's the performance of the car. I don't know what it is, but that doesn't look good, in all seriousness. As Q3, by the way, will be underway momentarily. Only about 20 seconds or so until we're back underway. And now we are actually underway. They have not shown the time yet. Now they have. So I'll sync it up in about 40 seconds time. And the cars, like we saw in Q2, won't be going out straight away. And Mercedes there is cooling the car, even though it's not that hot really, but they still have to because the cars do get awfully hot. And now they're just showing the Alpine there of Alonso. And Alonso, good job to get into the top 10, but it's going to be tough, I think, for him to get any further. And there you go. So, timer on the screen, and we have 11 minutes to go in qualifying. Who will end up on pole position for the sprint race? We are about to find out. Just trying to quickly see what was up with Mazepin. I'll just do a search on Twitter to see what's going on. Let me just have a look. Can't see anything at the moment in regards to Mazepin, but I would like to know because I didn't look great for being totally honest. He did have some some news regarding Mazepin, I think the last week or so, because he was videoed being kicked out of a nightclub, I think in Mexico City, after having an argument with bouncers of the club, which he denies, but there is video of him having a bit of trouble in the nightclub, so yeah. We'll try and find out, put it that way, what he was what he was crying about, because yeah, for all the comments we make, obviously don't want to see anyone upset. And yeah, can't see an explanation at the moment. Anyway, let's get on to this battle at the front of the field. And all the cars now coming out onto the circuit. And going very slowly, I have to say, the cars on the exit of the pit lane. We want to get going eventually because, of course, you have to do an out lap, do a quick lap, and then got to do an in lap and get back to the pits, make sure you're giving yourself enough time to be fueled up. And they've already wasted 4 minutes in this session, so they can't be waiting around too long or else they won't get, 2 full runs in. As the two Mercedes now exit the pit lane. And now does Max Verstappen. And then behind him are the two McLarens. And then it is a Ferrari, which I think has started its lap. And is approaching, a Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, which is starting his lap pretty quickly. A lot quicker, rather, than the other drivers. As now we watch as Carlos Sainz also has started his final run. Or not final run, his first run rather in Q3, and so has Alonso now. We're currently looking at Max Verstappen though. Verstappen seemingly lacking the speed to get P1, but can he, when it really matters most, get P1? We'll find out in the next 7 minutes. As Lewis Hamilton begins his first attempt at pole for the sprint race. He's already through turn 3 and looking very, very quick. He will get a slight slipstream from the Red Bull of Sergio Perez ahead of, as I was just going to say, that Charles Leclerc has gone P1 with his current lap time with a 109.4, which is okay in comparison to what he was doing in Q2. As Hamilton now through turn 9, now into turn 10. As Verstappen is in turn 7 and 8 and 9. As Carlos Sainz goes 0.4 of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc into the 1 minute 08s. 1 minute 8s rather, I should say, not the 08s. Very good time there. As Alonso now goes second ahead of Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez goes quickest, but not for long, as Lewis Hamilton goes P1 by 0.7 of a second. What a time, as Hamilton is, as Verstappen now does his run and Bottas does his. Hamilton, for the moment, with, 5.5 minutes to go, Lewis Hamilton is currently in P1. Hamilton P1 by 1/4 of a second from Max Verstappen, who is in second place. Valtteri Bottas is third. And not too far away from Max Verstappen. He does, though, need another 1/10 of a second if he's going to finish ahead of Max in this session. And then you got Sergio Perez up in 4th, Pierre Gasly up in 5th, and then Carlos Sainz in P6, Lando Norris in P7. That's very good by him. And then Alonso 8th, Ricciardo 9th, and Charles Leclerc in P10. So that is your top 10 with 5 minutes to go here in qualifying. Still trying to look to see what was happening with Mazepin. There are people on Twitter speculating that it's, you know, the constant making fun of him and the memes and all of that, which, if that's what it is, I mean, I'll probably save this for a future maybe topic or video, but yeah, it can get rough, but everybody has to go through it. It's not, I don't think, I mean, yeah, well, actually, to a certain extent, you could argue that Mazepin has been through a bit more criticism and a bit more rough seas, put it that way, this year when it comes to criticism from the F1 fan base and pundits in general. But given what happened last, was it December, in that certain incident, we won't go into it because I'll probably get demonetized if we go into it. I don't think he has a leg to stand on, I'm afraid. If he had not really done anything wrong rather than just not quite getting the results, then yeah. I think the criticism would be unfair and the reaction would be, I think, fair enough. But given what he's done, I don't think I can defend him. I'll have to look more into it, though, because, I mean, I've had my criticisms, obviously, of Nikita Mazepin, but I don't know where I sit on the scale of, you know, harsh or not harsh enough, or whatever you want to call it. Like I said, we don't know if that is actually the reason for what happened. Oh, yeah, why Mazepin was crying there. I'll try to find out what was going on, because it is interesting to see. Because I don't think I've ever seen that before. That's the reason I'm researching it, because like I said, I've never seen a driver after a qualifying session actually cry. That's quite extreme. Can't see anything at the moment yet, but if it is to do with, you know, the criticism towards him, then in his case, I don't think he can complain too much because of what he has done in the last year or so. If it was, you know, a driver that's done nothing off track to be criticised and has, you know, underperformed on track, then yeah, but like I said, he had no leg to stand on, I think, for him. Max Verstappen coming through turn 6 and 7 on his outlap. Everyone now on an outlap, as we now on the TV broadcast are looking at Lewis Hamilton, who really is looking like clear favourite to finish P1 here in this session. He's got a quarter of a second gap to Max Verstappen, and given how short the lap is here, finding 0.265 of a second is not exactly easy. Saying that, Max Verstappen will give it a go anyways. We'll see whether he can overturn that difference as Max Verstappen now begins his final run in Q3. There's a bit of a slipstream from the car ahead, which will be Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. And Verstappen now through turn 2 and 3. Car looked absolutely fine through there. I think the difference, though, between the Mercedes and the Red Bull through this sector is not really able to be seen. It's rather to be seen in the data rather than with the eye. as the Mercedes using their superior straight line speed very well through Sector 1 and also Sector 3, as well as Max Verstappen has not improved his first sector, but that doesn't matter that much at the moment. It's Sector 2 that matters. Bit of understeer on this lap for Verstappen. Not a massive amount, but a bit. So Charles Leclerc jumps up to 5th place in the Ferrari. And Verstappen is improving this lap, but not by enough, as Carlos Sainz goes up to 4th in the Ferrari. Where will Gasly go? Gasly now goes up to 4th place. What a result so far for Pierre Gasly. Verstappen finishes up in 2nd place, does not improve his time. Sergio Perez now goes 4th. Lewis Hamilton comes to the line, improves even further by 0.2 of a second, and he ends up P1 by 0.4 compared to Max Verstappen. Bottas is 3rd, half a second down on his teammate. Norris has improved his time, but he remains in 8th place. Ricciardo is up to 9th, and Alonso did do his final run, and he will end up P10 on the starting grid for the sprint race for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. But Lewis Hamilton, as he usually is in Formula 1, is the quickest driver, and it is, as far as I'm concerned, a proper pole position. The fans cheering him on. Of course, he's had plenty of ups and downs around this place, and plenty of he's felt plenty of animosity in the past from the crowd, but not any more. But Hamilton, he was saying coming into the weekend, it has to be must win from now on, and that he has to be, and his team has to be now at his absolute best, which of course they have to if they're going to win the championship. And even though he has a 5-place penalty, getting pole for the sprint race by almost half a second, that is a statement right there that I am not going away and you will have to win this championship rather than me gifting it to you. That's what Hamilton is saying right there to Verstappen. And Hamilton now, even though with the penalty, he is in a good looking position in terms of his pace. Very, very quick in that session was Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen, I don't think will be that disappointed. Like I said, his target in this session and the sprint race has got to be ahead of Valtteri Bottas so that he can start on pole position for the race on Sunday. What he cannot afford, though, is to lose position to Valtteri Bottas in tomorrow's sprint race. But guys, qualifying is over and done with. And I'll just quickly read out the final finishing order here in qualifying. So this is what the starting grid will be. And let me just get rid of that. No, the timer I meant. Yeah, this is the final finishing order of qualifying. So Lewis Hamilton on pole position for the sprint race. Verstappen 2nd, Bottas 3rd, Perez 4th, and then Gasly, Sainz, Leclerc, Norris, Ricciardo, Alonso. That is your top 10. Then P11 and P20 is Ocon, Vettel, Tsunoda, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, and then Stroll, Latifi, Russell, Schumacher, and Mazepin. That is your grid for the sprint race. Of course, I won't be live for the sprint race, but I will see you guys on Sunday for a Grand Prix that should be very, very exciting. Thank you guys for coming along to this stream, by the way, and watching. If you're watching this after the stream has finished. And again, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for the content coming up on Sunday. Race preview at 2 p.m. UK time, 3 hours before the race starts. And then we'll be live half an hour before the race starts at 4:30 p.m. UK time for the race watch-along. And then I'll be live right after the race with race reaction. That's if there is something actually to react to this time rather than what we had in Mexico. But guys, until... and I was just going to quickly actually get into the outro there, but I just remembered I need to say a couple more things. Don't forget as well to share this video and channel absolutely everywhere you can. And as well, smash the like button. Really does help the channel grow and really helps me as well show, it helps show me what you guys think of the content on the channel. So it'd be great if you could do that or, show your opinions in comments as well. And as well, don't forget to join my Discord server, link below in the description. That's the best place for notifications for my videos and streams, and it's a pretty good server to discuss motorsport in general. We have about 500 people in that server. If you want to join that growing community there, then make sure to do so. But guys, until Sunday and until the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, hopefully you guys can enjoy the sprint on Saturday. But until the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, the real race on Sunday, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.